In a quiet neighborhood of Tokyo amidst the hum of city life, lived a young couple, Aiko and Haruto. They had been married for 2 years, and their lives were a delicate blend of routine and contentment. Haruto worked as a software engineer and Aiko, a freelance illustrator, spent most of her days sketching by the large bay window of their small, cozy apartment. Their days were simple, filled with the familiar rhythm of shared meals, quiet evenings, and the occasional visit to the nearby park or a small cafe down the street. Aiko loved their little rituals. How Haruto would always make her coffee in the morning before leaving for work, how they would sit in companionable silence, their evenings lit by the soft glow of the television or the gentle hum of Aiko's pencil as she drew. It was a quiet life, perhaps even uneventful to an outsider, but to them it was peaceful and they cherished it. One summer evening as the cicadas droned in the trees, something shifted. Aiko had been working late on a project when Haruto came home, looking more tired than usual. He didn't say much during dinner, and Aiko, sensing his mood, didn't press him. She figured it was work stress, something that happened from time to time. But over the next few days, Haruto's mood remained distant, his usual warmth replaced with a kind of absent-mindedness that began to worry Aiko. "Is everything okay at work?" she asked one evening as they sat down for dinner. Haruto smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, just busy," he said before changing the subject. Aiko tried not to dwell on it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Haruto was coming home later than usual, and when he did, he was distracted as though his mind was elsewhere. Aiko tried to fill the silence by talking about her latest project, but even that didn't seem to capture his attention like it used to. Then one night Aiko's routine was shattered. It was a Friday, and Haruto had texted to say he would be late. Aiko didn't mind. She had a deadline to meet and figured she'd work through the evening. But as the hours ticked by, her concern grew. Haruto didn't usually stay out this late. By midnight, he still hadn't come home, and Aiko's anxiety turned into full-blown worry. She tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. At around 2 a.m. the door creaked open and Haruto stumbled in. His shirt wrinkled and his hair slightly disheveled. There was a strange scent on him, something unfamiliar. "Haruto!" Aiko exclaimed, rushing to him. "Where have you been? I've been so worried." Haruto waved her off. "Just out with some friends. I told you I'd be late." Aiko frowned. "But you've never stayed out this late before. Why didn't you answer my calls?" He gave a half-hearted shrug. "My phone died." "It's fine, Aiko. Don't make a big deal out of it." But it was a big deal. In all the time they had been together, Haruto had never acted like this. There was a coldness in him that hadn't been there before, a wall that seemed to be growing between them. The next morning Aiko decided to confront him, but before she could, there was a knock at the door. Haruto, who had been sitting quietly at the kitchen table, went to answer it. Aiko watched as the door opened, revealing a tall man dressed in a sharp black suit. His presence was imposing, and his eyes, dark and calculating, seemed to survey the apartment with an unsettling intensity. "Good morning, Haruto," the man said, his voice smooth and calm. "I believe we have some unfinished business." Aiko's heart skipped a beat. Haruto's face paled, and he stepped out onto the landing, closing the door behind him, but not before Aiko caught a glimpse of the tension in his posture, the way his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Curiosity and fear gnawed at her. Who was this man? And what kind of business did Haruto have with him? Aiko pressed her ear to the door, trying to catch snippets of their conversation, but their voices were too low to make out. After a few minutes Haruto returned, his face a mask of calm, but Aiko could see the unease lurking beneath the surface. "Who was that?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just someone from work," Haruto replied quickly. "Nothing to worry about." But Aiko was worried. She could feel something shifting, something dark and unfamiliar creeping into their lives. Over the next few weeks, the man in the black suit became a regular visitor. He would appear at odd hours, sometimes late at night, always dressed impeccably, always with that same cold, calculating air about him. And each time Haruto would go out to meet him, their conversations shrouded in secrecy. Aiko's attempts to ask Haruto about the man were met with evasive answers. "It's just business," he would say. But the way his eyes flickered with uncertainty told Aiko there was more to the story. She began to notice other changes too. Haruto's late nights became more frequent, and when he was home he was distant, his mind clearly elsewhere. One evening, unable to bear the tension any longer, Aiko followed Haruto when he left the apartment to meet the man. She trailed them through the narrow streets of their neighborhood, until they arrived at a small dimly lit bar tucked away in an alley. From the shadows, Aiko watched as the two men sat at a corner table, their conversation heated and intense.